Welcome to Three, a show about Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic, and part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. I'm Gill with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. We are through the first two rounds of Wimbledon. Rafa Nadal and Novak Djokovic, both through. I feel like normally at this time, this is the part where I say they haven't dropped a set. That's not true this time. Novak went 4 sets in his first round. Nadal has gone 4 sets in both of his matches. But let's start with Djokovic, the number 1 seed at the top of the draw, and then we will go to Nadal. It was a weird performance to me against Sun Woo Kwon, but never really in danger of losing the match at any point. And then it was quite the performance, very clean against Kokkinakis, and it was never competitive at any point. 2 matches down, Amy. What are your thoughts on Djokovic?
I'm really encouraged by the Kokkinakis match. I thought he served beautifully. Speeds were good on his serves. Placement was good. He put a high percentage of first serve in. He won a high percentage of second serve points. The match was never in doubt. He returned exceptionally. I mean, a lot of depth on his return. He looked like he was grooving. The Novak that we know showed up to that match. So I'm very encouraged.
I agree. It was a strong effort. And Kokkinakis, we were a little intrigued because this is a guy who's at least starting to begin to have his pro career. 26 years old, so he's 9 years younger than Novak. He looked about 9 years older in his movement in that match. I mean, repeatedly, Novak was just controlling the rallies in the way that he does. And it's a little different than the way Nadal does, but it's his way. And it was so precise, so much accuracy. And I think you're right, Amy. The return to serve was really kind of a tipping point shot in this, because that pretty much put Kokkinakis on his heels instantly in so many rallies. And again, very impressive.
So often the case on grass. It's such a server surface, and a lot of players like Kokkinakis have success on the surface because of that. Not saying him specifically, but in general. And then you come up against Novak and you have to play behind your serve. You don't get all the free points that you're used to getting on the surface. I don't want to be negative here, but this is what I've found most interesting about Novak through 2 rounds. I mean, Kokkinakis, he was having so much success from start to finish, and it was such an amazing performance that this observation that I have was kind of irrelevant in the second round. But in the first round, there were struggles. He did seem flat. He was struggling with his level, and we didn't get anything in the form of emotion or frustration or fire. He didn't get excited when he won. He didn't get upset when he lost. It was just flat. And after Goran Ivanisevic, after the Nadal quarterfinal in Paris, basically said, I was really upset with Novak's body language. And it's something that, Amy, you pointed out immediately after on our show. It's something that, talking to Steve Flink, it was one of the first things that he said. Like, we saw it again kind of against Kwon, and I don't really know what to make of it. I found it a little bit strange and surprising.
I am not too concerned. It's interesting that you say that, and I'm hearing you, and it's legit and valid, but for whatever reason, I'm not concerned, because these guys are just getting their bearings on grass, on the surface, and certainly dropping a set does not concern me. It's a quick turnaround, and also the emotional component doesn't bother me as much, because you have to pace yourself. And if he's not looking super fiery or fired up or whatever, it doesn't concern me at all. I thought his body language was great in the Tanasi match. So, but also just any negative body language. I think if you come out of that first round match in one piece and you haven't slipped on the fresh grass and you haven't pulled anything, and you're pretty even keel throughout, I think you've done a good job.
Yeah, coaches are funny. I think coaches sometimes they act as press secretaries, attachés on behalf of their player. and Goran has had his share of moments. Of course, it's one thing to say this in the wake of a Nadal match, which is a inherent epic, high stakes slam kind of match. The first 2 rounds, it's funny how when you said flat, now there's flat and there's also business. And I think to Novak, yeah, first 2 rounds, it's about briskly getting through efficiently, good footwork, good body work. Because in a way, I think also when you're playing on grass, I don't want to get too emotive because I don't want to lose track of where my feet and my body are because the slip factor is significant. So I think you just want to be like, first, do no harm to myself. And these matches, neither of these matches warranted any drama of the kind of late stage in a set. I come up with this big shot, it's 5-all, and here's the pump in the crowd. And that's not even where it's at with the Wimbledon vibe in the first couple of rounds. So I think it was very much businesslike for Novak. Different when we get to Nadal. We'll cover that when we talk about Rafa.
Okay. Yes. A completely different vibe with Rafa. There's no doubt about that. Okay. So look, I'm not concerned about it either. I thought it was strange. Is kind of really where I land on it, just because there was no reaction to anything at any point during the Kwan match. And then Kokkinakis, look, when you're blowing someone out, it's actually polite to just stay calm.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, I will say this about the look in the. I think also I wonder if Novak. Look, he's come here, didn't play Australia, lost earlier than he desired in Paris. So maybe he just wants to stay tranquil throughout this and not create any of these waves of any emotion and be as businesslike as possible. And that's what's allowed him to win here 6 times and not be. I mean, there have been other years where he's been less a favorite and there's a tension on Roger and Rafa and what are they going to do? And there's Andy Murray and Novak. Novak is kind of, what do you say about a guy whose second best slam is winning Wimbledon 6 times? Pretty amazing.
Yeah. He's been more open about the Australia thing recently. So that's what came to mind, Joel, when you just said that.
Well, there's
about how much that's affected him this year and how he didn't really acknowledge initially the emotional scarring that entire experience had. But he said that, coming to terms with that has been a process.
And there's also
so healthy. Go ahead, Joel.
There's also this, look, down the road, there's the US Open. And as of now, he would not be allowed in the US Open. There was this interesting dialogue that's going on. US resident Tennis Sandgren, who's not vaccinated, he could play the US Open. And there's been some dialogue around that. So that's kind of intriguing. And that's creating kind of a whole, dialogue, commentary. And so I think Novak, I'm going to play tennis now. Try to do that and say these things. He did say some things, but I think inside the lines, he wants to just keep it as subdued as possible.
I really admire Novak for coming out about that and saying that I underestimated how rough that whole process was on me emotionally and how much it took a toll. It's completely understandable, but in this environment where we're talking more about mental health, that the number 1 player in the world comes out and says, look, I'm struggling mentally, emotionally with some of the things that are going on in my life. I really admire that. And I think we should have more of that. Nadal and Federer, they're a little more close to the vest with their emotions and that kind of thing. So I thought that was really great. I'd love to see more of it. And I hope that Djokovic is working his way through all that. And by the looks of this last match against Tanasi, I think he might be.
Next round is Mimir Kecmanovic, who has been a part of Novak's season, both directly and indirectly, taking his place in the draw at the Australian Open when Djokovic was forced to withdraw. I don't even know what word to use. I'm going to say forced to withdraw. And then they play in Belgrade, and they played a really excellent 3-setter where Djokovic dropped the first set but came back to win the next 2. So the head-to-head, also they met in Belgrade the year prior. It's 2-0. We have talked before about Kecmanovic's excellent season. I think he's clashed with Nadal as well. So What do you make of this matchup, Joel?
I think it's going to be a little more of a sterner test for Novak. It's a classic. Now he's in the third round. Now he's getting to the thick of the tournament. And there are going to be a lot of interesting rallies. It's very much the contemporary Wimbledon. And these guys are going to settle in and they're going to go at it. And there's going to be some good movement and some problem solving that Novak's going to do. I think Novak's going to look to make his way to net. He's been doing that more in recent years, and not that he's going to become Patrick Rafter, but he's going to assert things some. And I think there's going to be a lot of, I'm looking forward to that match. I think there's going to be a lot of nice points.
I'm wondering if Kecmanovic is emerging as a more fast court type player, because he's pretty young. So we're still figuring out who he is, but he had the good run in Australia. He played well at Indian Wells. He did not, I saw him at the French Open in person. I saw him play Medvedev, and he got his butt kicked. I mean, it was really ugly. And so far so good at Wimbledon. So since their previous two meetings were on clay, it'll be interesting to see how the change in surface works out for Kecmanovic. He's a good player. He's got a lot of energy, good mover, good serve. I would think this would be a tougher test.
I'm not sure. Now, first of all, let me respond to the surface thing.
Yeah.
Because I do have the numbers. So he's like dead even on all three surfaces, obviously with hard court being a bigger sample size, but win percentage is 51% on hard, 53% on clay, 50% on grass. Negligible. I think it's all been the same, but he is a player who does like to play on the rise. So I would almost think that hard court long-term might be the surface where I like him best, just because the bounce is the truest. That's just a pet theory that I have about him. But I do kind of look at him as a Djokovic light in a way, where it is one of those matchups where you struggle to find something that he does better than Novak, whereas there are some players in the draw who might serve bigger than Djokovic, or might be a player like RBA, who Djokovic doesn't have the normal rally tolerance advantage, right? Just as a couple of examples, Kecmanovic feels like a Djokovic light, similar to like the Nishikori prototype.
Did we have this conversation about Borna Coric once? I mean, it's kind of makes me think of that too, right? Because Novak plays the way contemporary tennis is mostly played, and that's more so for him than Rafa or Roger. And you're right, and I think you're right. Nishikori, David Goffin, it's like, okay, guy, you wanna out two-hand backhand me? Is that what you want to do? So in a way, if you got to think, well, how do I actually disrupt Novak? Otherwise, he does what I do better. And then you're just kind of, oh my, what do I do here? So the innovation index is intriguing in this matchup. Like I said, there'll be good rallies, but it doesn't mean I see an upset.
I think I got put askew by that Medvedev Kecmanovic match, because and one match does not a player define, right?
Sure.
But Medvedev was supposed to be weak on clay, and Kecmanovic, being such a great mover, I had high hopes for that match.
Me
and
too.
it was a thorough beatdown. But again, that could be an outlier, or we don't know. Kecmanovic is still so young. He's in this group with Alcaraz and Rune, where I think their styles of play are still emerging.
I also think the flat hitters are not the ones that give Medvedev problems on clay. The flatter guys who hit more through the court. I think, for example, if you gave Medvedev a choice, I think he'd rather play Novak on clay than, say, Rafa. Or play.
Well, that's everybody, right?
Yeah, that's everybody. That's good. But I just think he'd fare far better in far more rallies, win or lose, because of the ball moving through the court than the jumping. And I think the thing for Medvedev that becomes undone on clay is when you get the ball, let's say, high to his forehand and very to his forehand, because now he has less energy from the court to work with. Whereas, but yeah, these results and it's so interesting how these scores things reveal these things.
I think if Novak could clone himself, he'd rather play himself than Rafa on clay.
Agreed.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Think about that, Gill.
Yeah.
Do the math.
That's good, Amy. That was good thinking. Kecmanovic 3-9 in his career against the top 10. He beat Berrettini at Indian Wells and he beat Felix in Miami. So looking for that fourth career top 10 win. Let's move on to Nadal. Dare I say more dramatic through 2 rounds than Djokovic. That's not a bold take. Cerundolo, for a large portion of their first round match, was looking like the better player throughout the third set. And then much of the second set, he had Nadal under a lot of pressure. The fourth set. Rafa kind of stormed back very late in the fourth set, completely ran through the finish line. And then it was a similar match script against Ricardus Berankis, where it was a struggle a little bit throughout. I think late in the sets, Nadal pulled away in the first and the second. Berankis did win the third set, just like Cerundolo won the third set. And then in the fourth set, it was Nadal's best against Berankis. And similarly, it was very much like lots of momentum at the end of the match. Nadal storms through the finish line to say the exact same thing again. Who did I go to first on Djokovic? I went to Amy. Joel, what do you think of Nadal's first 2 matches?
You know, that's like Nadal and the fighting and the up and the down and the being tested by an opponent. I think opponents know nothing better than their very best is necessary for Nadal. That's true with Novak. That's true with Roger. That's true with, but in a way, there's something that Nadal triggers the arena-like thing. You know, you've competed. You're dissected by Novak. You're carved up by Roger, but you're competing with Rafa. And so, because if you're not going to compete, you're not going to have any chance. So you got to kind of really push yourself. And these guys do. And then I also wonder, Rafa, I don't know where things are at with the foot. Where things are at? That's the big question, where it's at.
Don't we assume it's fine? Like if he's not showing any pain or. We told that and he'll say that it's fine, but we don't know. I mean, Pete Sampras won Wimbledon one year pretty much on one leg in the year 2000, and he wasn't saying things, you know, we don't know what he's revealing. I'm just crossing my fingers for Nadal staying healthy.
Every so often I'll look at his face, because I mean, these players, their face reveals so much. There's hardly anyone out there that is a true poker face.
Karatsev.
Well, that's true. That's true. Good call. Looking for any hint of pain, because you could really see the moments over the course of the past year when he's been in pain. And I can't really say that I see that yet. He's still has that spring in his step. Now, does he have moments where he looks annoyed or bothered with himself? But look, Nadal hasn't really played on grass for 3 years or something.
That's right.
He deserves a little bit of a curve here. I'm not really seeing, I'm getting texts saying, what's wrong with Rafa? Folks, he's winning. He hasn't played on grass in a long time. He's Rafa Nadal. He, just like the previous tournament, Roland Garros, he's using his defense and his wits and his flicks and his net play. I think he's looked really good. I think the headline of this Wimbledon, and I meant to bring this up at the top of the show, is how the seas have parted for the big 3, as usual. Out of the tournament, the Russians, which we knew, Medvedev, Rublev, Khachanov, Opelka's out, a big server. Ruud is out, Dimitrov's out, Hurkacz is out, Berrettini's out, Shapovalov's out, RBA, FAA, Runa, and Cilic. I mean, it's like seeds just getting out of the way and making the draw easier and easier. I don't even know why we did the draw show, to be honest. So I'm really, what? So to be honest, I'm really bullish and pleased with the way that Rafa has looked so far.
The ocean. So it's not just a sea; it's an ocean. I mean, you rattle off names. I mean,
I wrote it down. I cheated. I didn't do it off the top of my head because people have been getting on me for my slow talk. So I
guys, the semifinals, and let's make sure to get back to Nadal in a moment. The semifinal on the top half. So it would be what was formerly Ruud's quarter, but de facto, I think everybody expected Hurkacz to get out of there.
Yeah.
It's going to be like Cam Norrie, Tiafoe, Tommy Paul. Like, these are the contenders to someone like that's going to make it out of the quarter.
Well, and also just I think, of last year's semifinalists, 3 are gone, right? And the 3 of the 4 are gone.
There's only one quarterfinalist left.
So I feel the one I feel worst for, I have to say, because I like him so much and we fancy his chances, is Berrettini. That's unfortunate.
COVID.
That was really unfortunate because of COVID.
Well, and FAA, I mean, that one I feel, and we talked about that match, how that was going to be really testy. And that guy Cressy, and you said it, Gill, that guy's got attitude till the cows come home. And that guy Cressy knocked him off. I need to go back and look at highlights of that match and see how that happened.
He was awesome, Cressy. Okay, but Amy, it's true. Everyone's like, what's wrong with Nadal right now? So
stop. No, everyone is not what's wrong with Nadal right now.
Yes,
Except for
yes.
me.
I think there's a lot of.
I'm not, but
Okay. I agree. I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay, fine. I was exaggerating.
Yeah, be careful.
Okay. Many are concerned about the fact that Nadal went 4 sets with Cerundolo and Berankis, and will like us to answer the question, are we concerned? Look, I don't think that Nadal has been good. I don't think the level has been there. The forehand was really bad today. I mean, compared to what it normally is, really bad. And that's a problem. But the goal is to win. Mm-hmm. It's the first week of Wimbledon. Rafa hasn't played on grass in 3 years. He missed some training in this already short lead up because of the foot ablation. Plus, even in his prime, these were a tricky couple of rounds for him traditionally at Wimbledon previously. So if you win, that's success, period.
Yes.
Agreed. Well, see, and I don't, I'm concerned because of the prior foot stuff. I don't talk about Nadal as an advocate on behalf of Nadal or an enemy of Nadal. I talk about Nadal as an analyst of trying to understand where the game is going. And that's, by the way, why I always take issue with everyone, because I'm someone. That's what Uncle Tony says too. Everybody is someone. That's what Uncle Tony taught Rafa. And so I want to I'm concerned because Rafa is 36 years old and had a injury. That doesn't mean, we'll see how it goes. And that's a great point you make, Gill, about how even in his best Wimbledon years, Nadal rarely ran through his early rounds. There are going to be questions. He's coming off the arduous clay court season. They're the type of players stylistically, the Gilles Mullers, the slashers, who are going to just take their shot at him and make it tough for him. But here he is. He's in the 3rd round.
And Gasquet won today. So, that's kind of fun. I like seeing that because he's almost at the end. But also left in Rafa's quarter, they would meet in the quarterfinals. Don't forget Taylor Fritz. Give a shout out to him. I know you mentioned Tiafoe and some other Americans, Gill. Remember, Fritz beat Rafa at Indian Wells for the championship this year. So that could be an interesting potential quarter.
Right, you got Kyrgios and Tsitsipas, and
that would be they would be semifinalists potentially, and they're going to play in the 3rd round. Yeah, Fritz is the one that nobody's really talking about. I don't think enough, except Joel, who is talking about him.
Wrote about him this morning. Yeah, again,
oh, good.
Who won Eastbourne, who has had remarkable Taylor Fritz. The last 2 years, he's had a spring that's almost made it impossible to think of playing Wimbledon. And then he did. Last year, he had an injury. Within 3 weeks, he was back at Wimbledon. This April, for a while, his left foot was in a boot. He had some tendonitis, but he won Eastbourne. So he's he's the kind of player who reminds me, years ago, there was an American, Robert Kendrick, had a 2-set-to-love lead on Nadal at Wimbledon. Big, bold American, big serve, big forehand. But again, that's a little down the road. And Nadal in the next round, it's Sonego. So that should be fairly comfortable, I think.
Who Roger beat at Wimbledon last year. I remember that match.
Right. Sonego's hit 88 winners in 2 matches. He beat Kudla in 5 sets, and then he beat one of my favorite drop shot artists, Gaston, in the second round. But I think that's a fairly Rafa friendly style matchup. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yeah.
Sonego's a forehand guy. He's not a backhand guy. And I think we saw today with Berankis once again that, when Nadal is not playing confidently off of his forehand and he's up against a strong offensive backhand, and I think Berankis's best shot is probably his backhand down the line. It can really do a lot of damage against Nadal, but Sonego really wants to hit serves and forehands.
Well, right, and you mentioned Berankis. You talked about earlier about the Novak lights, the Nishikori's, the Borna-Koric's, and Berankis kind of fits that kind of model, and he handed to him. That was a pretty good effort today. But Nadal, per usual, found a way to kind of storm back and keep it from going into 5 sets.
I just noticed from the matches so far with regard to Nadal, a lot of errors seem to be coming off the forehand wing with a ball that's really deep. So if Sonego, is it Sonego or Sonego?
It's one where you'll hear it both ways, but I'm pretty sure the right way is Sonego.
Okay, Sonego. If he is able to get good depth on his forehand, maybe. But if Rafa wants to concentrate on the guy's backhand, he plays those patterns with such ease. And he's been coming forward and volleying brilliantly, really this entire year. So I've just been struck by how well players do when they move forward. And that's both the men and the women. And certainly Nadal is comfortable doing that. I don't know if this Italian is.
Yeah, and Wimbledon's a great place to do it. I mean, you see how much, I said this years ago when Nadal reached his first or second final, he's kind of embraced his inner John McEnroe. Little slice backhand, serve and volley, lots of drop volleys. I mean, Nadal, the contemporary volley now is the short volley. It used to be the stick the volley deep into the backhand quarter. Now the thing to do is hit the great approach shot and then hit the short volley into the other part of the court. Keep that in mind, Gill, the next time you kick my butt when we play tennis.
Well, I think you see the 2 volley combo. Ash Barty was a master at this. First volley deep, second volley angle short.
That's the approach.
Classic combo.
But I think that's less. I think that's less Rafa's approach. I think Rafa's approach is the big approach shot that puts you. You need a bust to get back to the court. You hit your passing shot, and then he hits a fairly short volley, and there you go.
Yeah, he doesn't like to waste time with the deep one, right to the dropper. I love Andy Roddick. I think he's great. And he tweeted something that I mostly agree with, which is that Nadal's an incredible volleyer. Here's the one part of that tweet that I didn't agree with. He said that nobody talks about it. Everybody has been talking about it for like 10 years now. I mean, it's like, can we stop? The Nadal's volleys are underrated notion needs to go away forever. They are rated very, very highly and correctly so.
Well, the whole thing, as I said earlier, the nobody, the everybody, the people are, all these things. This is a bit of a work hazard of working in media, where he's saying these things. No one's talking about that. Well, no, excuse me, and I think sometimes the social media world makes things a little tempting for anyone, even a Hall of Fame tennis player, to say that. You're right. People have been well aware. I mean, remember, Nadal reached his first Wimbledon final 16 years ago. 16 years ago, how old were you then, Gill? 6, 7? 6? It's a long time ago. A long 7. So it's like this underrating has a long time. Underrating by whom? So I agree. I think Nadal, and boy, does he have, and how about that overhead? I mean, don't ever lob to Nadal. I mean,
backhand or the forehand. He's got them both, which fascinates me. Nobody has a backhand overhead, but maybe because he's technically right-handed, I don't know. He can do anything.
I think Federer's is, I think, a little better backhand overhead.
Yeah, I would agree.
Where it's the ballet one where you just touch it and you can control where it goes, or it's the actual smash.
I think Federer can also have the nice little hard flick of the wrist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're both excellent at that shot. And by the
Yeah.
way, I think that shot should be practiced. I trained that shot, and I think it shouldn't be ignored. It's important. Okay, I want to end on like this very direct question. So, has the first two matches from Nadal or Djokovic, Joel, changed your calculus or expectations for either Rafa or Novak?
Not for Novak, a millimeter, maybe a smidge for Rafa. I mean, in other words, we have them 1 and 2 seeds, and so thinking is that they are supposed to reach the finals. And Novak has just been pretty much like that first set. In that set he lost in his first round match, did nothing, and then he continued, and look how well he played in the second round. So nothing discouraged me from seeing Novak on a good path. Rafa, little more of a concern about his health and overall, not just fitness, but his tennis precision.
I'm the opposite. I'm more encouraged after seeing Rafa, especially since I know that the draw has gotten easier for him and that the foot hasn't seemed to bother him too much in the first 2 matches. So now I'm like, oh, well, he's Nadal. He'll get it together. He'll figure it out.
Okay. 3 little bears. I'm in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I thought a win is a win. Hasn't looked good, in my opinion, in terms of level, but I don't think it matters. So I'm just going to be flat and straight. And then with Novak, I would say same thing, pretty much exactly level with how I started the tournament. So there you have it. All right. Djokovic, once again, taking on Kecmanovic. Nadal taking on Sonego. 2 very, I think, classic third round opponents. Little interesting, nothing crazy. Third round. That's how it is. We will continue our coverage on 3. Excited to get back together for whatever comes next. That'll do it for this episode. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. We appreciate it if you leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you next time on the next episode of 3.